Hornet, the princess of Hallownest, the gendered child raised by 3 queens. But what if that was not the case? In this version of the story, Hornet met Vespa a lot earlier than normal and thus spent a lot more time training with her. One day, when Hornet was still quite young, she was exploring what she could within the borders of Hallownest. She was quite curious, as any child would be. That led to her finding the kingdom's edge. Being surprised to see something that resembles snow, a thing she only heard about in her mother's stories, she went further within the area. That's when she tripped and fell in an opening. Fortunately for young Hornet, the fall wasn't bad. Not at all, as she landed within the hive, a vibrant and colorful place. She was bewildered by all the new colors she was seeing, even if they were all variations of yellow and orange. The stroll through the hive would not last long though, as the guards patrolling around that area quickly found the intruder. That's when she was brought before Vespa for the first time. Vespa recognized her immediately as the child of Hera, mainly because of their similar temperament, as Hornet was struggling to get out of the grasp of the guard. Then she asked the little bug if she wanted to get stronger, to train and combat arts that no one else in Hallownest even knew about. Hornet instantly agreed, wanting to become stronger as something big was coming. She didn't know what, but she knew it was important, because of what her mother told her. Thus Hornet started her training with Vespa a lot earlier than in the normal story and spent a lot more time with her, learning the secrets of the combat arts of the bees. Then everything that happened in Hollow Knight and the lead up to Silksong happens like normal. The knight comes through, but has a different fight with Hornet as her skill set is different. Then Hallownest is saved and the Radiance is defeated, and later Hornet is kidnapped by the Citadel. The one thing the Citadel bugs didn't realize is that they brought an agile and deadly bug that was taught how to fly like a butterfly and sting like a bee to their kingdom. Alright, that's the initial lore for this challenge. What challenge, you might ask? It's beating Silksong using only the Clawline. I've been wanting to do this run specifically because in my first ever playthrough I rarely if ever used the Clawline for anything other than platforming. And to be honest with you for a bit, I can see why it is mainly used for that and not for combat. Then again, there are some pretty crazy combos you can do with it and Sawtooth Circlet, but today I am not allowing anything other than the Clawline itself. That's pretty much the only rule. I'm not allowed to deal damage to enemies in other ways than the Clawline unless I absolutely need to. Other than that, I can use anything that buffs the damage of my needle or the ability itself, as yes, I'm finally doing a Silksong run where the needle upgrades actually matter. The knight in Farloom doesn't count, okay? That wasn't Hornet, it was the knight. Unfortunately, I do have to use the debug mod to give myself Clawline and a Silk Heart, as otherwise I have no silk to use the ability. There might be glitches that allow me to enter the room that contains Clawline and to get the first Silk Heart, but I do like to do these challenges as glitch-free as possible. Plus, I'm doing them mainly to have fun, so a bit of cheating to start a run with the ability proper works out in my opinion. And here we go. False Grotto was as usual the easiest area ever, as it is indeed the tutorial for the game. Easy to deal with mobs, as some only stay on the ground, and also the easiest boss in the game. Okay, I did die to Moss Mother. You can all laugh now. Though here and all throughout the run, I have observed that even compared to the Sawtooth Circlet, you can watch that run if you haven't already, Clawline is a lot harder to use, specifically if you don't have some of the later abilities. Dash, for example, is very valuable for some later fights. After an embarrassing death, I made it into Bone Bottom. Stop hitting me! You're lucky you don't look threatening, otherwise I would have put you down already. Oh, a feisty one. Just so you know, that kind of attitude only brings death on the pilgrimage. I'm not a pilgrim. I've been brought here against my will and I want to deal with whomever planned this. Interesting. Still, I recommend you go on this pilgrimage, even if it's in your own way. I think only the Citadel bugs could plan such a thing. Alright then, I will take my leave now. The Marrow was interesting. This is where I learned 2 things. First, I need to be really careful about my Clawline usage, as a lot of the time it might land me either within an enemy or straight in their line of fire. Yeah, you're very maneuverable, but a lot of enemies are just as much as Hornet, or you could accidentally bump into them after the Clawline hit. And second is the way in which the Clawline deals damage. It does so in 2 hits that both deal 50% of your needle damage. That leads to each hit of it dealing full nail damage. Then why have all the enemies needed 1 extra hit to die? Well, that's because the second hit of the Clawline cannot defeat enemies. That means I have to pretty much do one extra clawline hit for every single enemy. Yeah, it's good to learn these things as early as possible, so I might make things more bearable later. With that out of the way, I got myself the Silk Spear. Now, since Silk Spear looks just like Clawline, but you don't dash to it, I did think of allowing it too. Well, I even thought about allowing some more things and turning this into Hornet, but she's an actual bee. But I opted out of that, as Clawline would be more interesting on its own. Plus, I don't really have the soul needed for spells anyway in pretty much any fight. Then came the fight with Bellbeast. Here I did almost die once as I tried to take advantage of the attack where Bellbeast comes up from the ground, but unfortunately for me, it spawns bells on either side here that hit me. Lesson learned. Other than that attack, everything else was quite chill. The dash attack I would jump over and then clawline, and for the jump attack I could just wait for the landing and get some more damage in. With an actual silk heart on my hands, I went ahead and deleted the one I gave myself originally. I did that since with only one silk heart it makes things a lot trickier, as if I miss I have to wait for the regen. Meanwhile, if I have 2 hearts, then I would have extra silk. The deep dogs pretty much just came and went. The Ant Arena was pretty annoying. Then I got Dash, and of course the Bellheart Arena was annoying too. I could have skipped that one, but I wanted to bench near the Lace Arena because it was free and closer than any previous ones. Speaking of Lace, you finally made it! So the delegation we sent was successful. If falling to the bottom of this damn kingdom is a success, then yes. So you are the one who planned all that? That was easier than expected. What was easier? Finding you to make you pay. Oh, won't even let me monologue. Okay then. Here is where a huge problem appeared. In my previous runs, healing was quite limited, as in most of them I just couldn't use the nails, so I couldn't gather silk. Well, this one is even worse. Yes, I can still get one full heal by breaking the cocoon, but let me remind you of one small detail. The clawline uses up silk. Yeah, I can pick up the silk from the cocoon, but one single miss, or hitting an enemy as they parry, and I lose 1 silk and thus I can't heal. And unfortunately, the silk heart only kicks in when I'm at 0 silk. So I got 2 choices for every fight. Either I hit all my clawline attacks, or I have to do the whole fight heal-less. That's where my pain started. Sure, Lace only took me 20 minutes of attempts, but that is just the beginning. The fight itself wasn't really that hard, it was just that I had to get used to this hit and run style, mainly because I had no way to stall in the air after getting hit. Compared to Salted Circlet, where I was on the ground immediately after a hit and could respond however I wanted, in this run I will always be in the air, as at this point I haven't yet learned the trick to help me with staying on the ground by using the dash. As usual, Farfields was not the problem because there are no required fights in here other than 4th Chorus, and honestly even that can be skipped. I didn't skip it, but still good to know if I ever do a run where I need to. I got to the Seamstress, accepted the quest and got the 25 spines needed. This will be a pretty big upgrade because now I can stall in the air, so if an enemy does a grounded attack, I can just be in the air and dodge it. Now if the enemy does an air attack, I'm still screwed. I also went and got the mask shard there since I won't be using the plasmification from Architect's Crest because I have to keep the Hunter Crest for later. That means the more masks I have, the better it will be for me. 4th Chorus fight was interesting once I realized how high in the air I can get by using Clawline to pogo off of the boss's head, and I decided to do the explosive rock skip. Yup, you can actually skip the boss in 2 ways. The one I'm using works by hitting the explosive rocks above the boss by pogoing off of its head and hitting them with your needle. Once you hit both explosives, then the big rock will fall and finish the fight for you, no matter how much HP the boss has. This did take me a while as the height obtained was a lot, but not always enough to get the hits, plus I didn't know the exact location of the rocks. Ah, new customer I see. Would you like to take a look at my wares? So you're the vile merchant who makes bugs pay to even get in the shop. The greed! Hey there, no need to be so aggressive. All I'm doing here is making some money while offering bugs a place to lay low for a while. Safety shouldn't have a price. Well, tell that to the Citadel then. Oh, I surely will. After purchasing what I needed from Mort, I went ahead and entered Greymore. Here I don't need to do much other than go through the area and defeat Warwing to access Bellheart. I did do a stop at halfway home to use the bench, and it's good I did, as I died in the gauntlet right after it. Yeah, me dying and things taking a while are a staple of this run. After defeating the gauntlet, I continued my journey, but I did do a small detour to get the Reaper crest. Okay, earlier I said I will use the Hunter crest, so why do I want a new one? That's so I can get my hands on the Hunter crest upgrade a bit later, as that is given based on the amount of open slots you have on your crest, so I need as many crests and memory lockets as I could get. After dealing with the Reaper Chapel, it was time for Warwing. Now, I did die to this fight a couple times, mainly because of the attack where it goes forward and claws at the air. I really need to be more careful when it comes to attacks that move the boss, as when I clawline I'm pretty much set in stone on my trajectory until I do the pogo off of the enemy, so if that part of the attack would end up inside the hitbox of the boss, that will indeed damage me. Otherwise, it wasn't that bad of a boss fight, as I just had to time my attacks correctly. The fact I pogo away from Warwing actually makes it quite easy when it comes to dodging. But before I continue on to Bellheart, I have to talk about today's sponsor. Wait, I already did this joke once. Should I repeat it? Well, not really, because this time it is you guys who are sponsoring me. A few days ago, the channel hit 1000 subscribers and was monetized. Since then, I did make some money, and it is all thanks to your support. Thank you a lot for that. Well, if you want to continue supporting me and the content I make, why not leave a like, comment, or even subscribe to see more? I try to do these challenge runs every week or two, and I do want to diversify into other games as well quite soon. I hope to see you there. It is time to free Bellheart. Well, after getting through one more area and the boss. Wait, a boss? But there are two in the way, as Sister Splinter protects Cling Grip, and you have to defeat Widow to free Bellheart and continue into Act 2. After getting frustrated one too many times by the random mobs inside gauntlets, I decided to skip Sister Splinter. Well, that wasn't the only reason. While I didn't try the fight, I am guessing that it wouldn't be a fun one, as I would have to spend most of the time in the air, and that means I would have to be in the area where Sister Splinter moves. Yeah, I have a feeling I would get hit a lot in that fight, and I would die quite often. What I did then was the usual Cling Grip skip you see in speedruns. I called that flower bug thing over to where you do the skip, and I then used Clawline to pogo off of it and get to the ledge above. With the skip done, I was able to quickly get through the small area after Sister Splinter and got my hands on the new ability, Cling Grip. Now I could go after Widow, but not before unlocking the shortcut from the bench in Shellwood, as I was quite sure I wouldn't first try her. The Widow fight was a pretty major roadblock, and where I finally realized how underpowered the Clawline really is on its own. First things first, it was mainly a skill issue on my part, as the positioning when coming out of the pogo at the end of Clawline was different than if you would be on the ground and attacking, as you have to react quite quick to where the bells are coming from. So yeah, I had to spend quite some time getting used to that, and then some more in the final phase, as the attacks come quite quick and I need to learn and be sure exactly when I could attack. As for the damage of the Clawline, it's not bad at a baseline, since it just deals the same damage as your normal hit. The problem is the DPS, or damage per second. Compared to the Needle, where you can be aggressive and get a few hits in before dodging, the Clawline doesn't have that luxury. One hit, take it or leave it. Sure, some bosses stay in one spot for a bit longer and you can get a few Clawlines in, but that is quite rare and not the case for Widow. And even then, if you would use the normal Needle, you could get 4, 5 or 6 hits in that same time. It was nice to have some free hits, like when she did the spikes from the ground or the dash attack across the arena, but otherwise it was get one hit in and then dodge the bells. Now, one positive I have observed for a while but didn't realize until now is the way Clawline interacts with staggers. From what I have seen during this run, Clawline staggers bosses twice as fast as normal hits. It looks like the reason is that Clawline hits 2 times during its attack, so you do deal 1 needle worth of damage, but 2 needles worth of stagger value. This is actually quite nice, as it gets you some free damage or a few seconds to breathe, as these fights are quite long. It did take a while, but in the end I was victorious over Widow and got my hands on the needle in, and more importantly, the ability to upgrade my needle. Finally some damage. Hello sir, I need my needle sharpened as soon as possible. From the looks of your home, I guess you are the one who can do that. Yes I am, quite the sharp one. But not as sharp as your weapon, I see. Quite interesting. I don't think I have seen this kind of needle before. It was a gift from my master. It aids greatly in my combat style. Can you sharpen it or not? I can, but it won't be back to its full glory. That might require further work. That's not a problem, I shall come back. Now it was time for progress. I haven't mentioned any bells, and that's because I won't be doing the Blasted Steps route. I thought about the fight with Last Judge, and yeah, I don't want to see how that goes, as it's a pretty big boss that dashes around quite often. I'm surely gonna take a lot of damage there. Thus I decided to do the Phantom route, and it wasn't necessarily prettier. I went through Sinner's Road and unlocked the bench there, as I was sure the mist won't take it easy on me, and I was alright. I did die there once, and honestly it was quite funny. After that, I made it through with less issues than I expected and got to the exhaust organ, sat at the bench, and then entered the arena. The fight with Phantom went horribly for the first bunch of tries, as I had to relearn the fight. Yeah, having to fight the bosses in entirely different ways every single run does not help for when you have to do it in a new way. But if I had to try it again now, it surely wouldn't be that big of an issue. The main problem I had was with the ground attacks she would do, specifically the attack where she throws the pin and lounges after it. That and the other ground attacks took a while before I realized how to get around them. What you can do is get in the air and then clawline aiming at Phantom's head. That makes it so the pogo you do after hitting puts you high enough in the air from the start so the attacks can't hit you. When Phantom is in the air and throws her pin, it's pretty much a free hit for you. Just look where the pin ends up, dodge out of the way, and then clawline in the same spot. The ground pound she does later in phase 1 can also be considered a free hit for Hornet, dodge out of the way of the attack, and clawline after Phantom appears on the ground. Phase 2 is pretty much the same as phase 1, just that she's faster and can teleport. Yeah, be careful when it comes to the teleport to not bump into her when at low health. At the very least, I didn't have to do more of the fight since clawline can trigger the fight-ending parry. Imagine if it didn't and I had to use the nail at the end to check for the parry itself. Still, technically, any Phantom fight ends with a spell usage since, well, you parry her. Though, it's a cutscene so I won't count it as rule breaking. Finally, I got to Act 2, around the same time I had already finished my other runs. Yeah, this one took a while. I believe it was around 13 hours by the time I got to the ending. Either way, it was Coral Chamber's time. Well, for a bit, as I got to Songclave, then it was time for the bane of my existence, the Cogwork Dancers. Hey you! What brings you around here and why did you ring that bell? Revenge. At least for why I'm here. As for the bell, does it even matter? Aren't bells made for ringing? Yes, but it means more bugs will come here and I won't have this place all to myself. Oh no, such a sad fate. Anyway, I'll get going now. I don't have time for trivial matters. Oh really? Well, we shall see who laughs in the end. So, Cogwork Dancers. This is the fight that made me take a break from the run. Yeah, I got to them, tried the fight for like an hour, took a detour, came back and tried for a while longer, but I just couldn't get through. That's when I took a break and did the Hollow Knight randomizer. Watch that run if you haven't already. Okay, before talking about the fight itself, let me go over that detour I made. So the next needle upgrades are actually locked behind Cogwork Dancers, as to get the one in the vaults I need to get into Cogwork Core, and I might have been able to do the Great Ace of Farloam Wish, but I'm not sure. That meant I had to beat them now, right? Well, not exactly. There are two other upgrades I can get. For the first one, I needed to get Fade Down Cloak. To be honest, this one wasn't hard to get at all, since already having Clawline without defeating Tropio made it possible. Just some basic Silksong platforming. With Fade Down Cloak acquired, I was able to get into the Blasted Steps and check out Grindel's shop. Why Grindel? If you haven't used Snitch Pick, you might not know that other than giving you the rosaries from an enemy without defeating them, it also gives the Clawline one additional hit, making it do 3 hits. Now this hit doesn't deal the same damage as the others, but it's still an improvement. With this, I can now deal 25% more damage. The other upgrade was the one for Hunter's Crest. The thing is, I could have gotten this the moment I defeated Widow, but I really didn't know that the first Hunter Crest upgrade is behind, well, just meeting Ava. I thought I had to get some slots unlocked first. Either way, I can now get another damage boost as long as I deal damage and don't get hit. Hopefully this is enough. And yeah, in comparison to how long the first phase took before these upgrades, the fight was way faster. That meant I can get through quicker, so less time for me to take damage. At this point, phase 1 became quite easy as the attacks are slow enough for me to dodge them in any way I really wanted, other than going straight into the enemy. The problems would arise in phase 2. At first, this one was quite annoying to get through, especially that I would get damaged quite often on certain attacks, like when one dashes across the bottom of the arena and the other does a diagonal dash. Yeah, there were some attack patterns that would just lead to me getting hit because of the size of the hitboxes and my positioning. One thing that really helped during the fight was actually getting high in the air and hitting the boss while it was airborne. As long as I sort of knew what attack was coming, I could get one hit in, and that made the boss fight go on even faster. With all the upgrades and the patterns somewhat learned, it was a case of throwing myself at the boss until I was able to defeat them. Thankfully, that didn't take another hour. It was time for a bunch of upgrades. What did you think? That I would do Trobio in the Forum Arena without upgrading myself a bunch? First up was getting the 2 needle upgrades I could get in Act 2. Unfortunately, the final one is behind the Flea quest, and that is in Act 3. First I went into the vaults, where the worst part was the arena right before entering the area itself. The thing is, this is another area where you can just skip everything and still get where and what you need out of it. So I got the pale oil and then the upgrade itself, as I will need it for the next oil. Yes, the great taste of Farloom, the one wish that ended my longest Steel Soul playthrough. Steel Soul anguish aside, it wasn't that bad. The ants were actually worse than linguini. First I went to the Moss Druid, as this is the easiest ingredient to get. Then I went and fought Chef Lugoli. The fight itself took a few tries, as this is like the 3rd time I fought this guy ever. Honestly, the Clawline made the fight a bit more bearable, as I was able to get some distance from the boss just by using it and then dashing away. It was all about positioning, so I didn't get hit by the Muck Maggot Juice or his big asset. Afterwards, I had to go into Sands of Karak. Time for another boss. I'm kind of embarrassed that I died to Great Conchflies. On paper, the fight is really simple and easy, but I still found a way to die to them. It is all about waiting to see where the boss comes out of the ground / walls, and then just clawing them when they try to burrow back in. Nothing too complicated. Then I had to get through the area itself. It was a pain as I died a few times, and I was stubborn enough to not unlock the bench at the top of Blasted Steps, because I just thought I wouldn't need it, so I had to go the long way around. I still managed to get what I needed from there. The nectar took me 20 minutes to get. What was supposed to be a quick in and out with some ant fights took way longer than I had hoped. Yeah, there were a lot of ants in that basement, and me not being used to fighting them with this ability didn't help. It was really just another case of throwing myself at the issue until I finally learned how to deal with it. And finally it was time for Courier's Rashes. I did try to clear the road from the Couriers to Murgwin, but I took too much damage, so I decided to just leave it as is and do it without clearing. Though I'm not sure about it exactly, I believe the Phantom route is a lot faster compared to the Last Judge route for this courier quest. You might be asking about the Mist. Well, the Mist area itself goes away after you defeat Phantom, which leaves only one room with a bit of platforming in its place. Sure, Sinner's Road is scary, but it is really short and you can just go around all the enemies in there. Then the Coral Chambers part is also pretty easy to deal with, as you can clawline above most enemies. All you need to pay attention to is where the flying enemies are when you do your clawline or when you get out of it. Thus, I fed the big bug and got my hands on the final oil. Obviously, I went straight to Pliny to upgrade my needle. Oh my, after such refining, look at what I uncovered. A hexagonal pattern? I've never seen such intricate work. The craft of my master's tribe was indeed impeccable. I have found few weapons of the same quality. I need to meet this master of yours one day, and unfortunately for you, they are long gone. Unfortunate indeed, the loss of such a technique. Before getting the threefold melody, I wanted to do 2 more things. One was getting a couple more mask fragments to get 1 more mask. I got one from Peb for some rosaries, one from this arena in Deep Docks where I almost died, and the final one from the hidden room in Whispering Vaults. Then, for the second thing, I went to Hunter's March to get a fractured mask so I would have an extra hit over the new masks I got. The big ant at the start and the arena went somewhat smoothly, as I had already had a training arc against ants. After that, I got the mask for free, as the NPC selling it dies after getting Clawline. I think I could have just gotten this from the very start. Well, I would have had way less damage for the ants, so who knows how long this would have taken me back then. As for more masks, there are 2 more obtainable in Act 2. The reason I didn't go for them is I didn't want to deal with the Beastline far fields yet. That meant I could only get 1 mask, which on its own would have not made that big of a difference, so I decided to stay at 7 masks plus the fractured one. With all the upgrades I wanted obtained, it was time to go for the melodies. Weirdly enough, Trobio wasn't as big of a problem as he was in previous runs. I managed to get him on the 2nd attempt. I guess being able to quickly get away from him whenever I attacked was quite the bonus. There really wasn't anything you wouldn't see in a normal run. I generally got nothing to say about this fight, I am sorry. Already having Clawline meant I didn't have to take the left route after the elevator and could go straight for the Vault's melody. With the cylinder in hand, I went to Cardenius and learned the first one. Next up was Cogwork Core. Well, this area went pretty much like any normal playthrough other than the fact I didn't want to deal with the enemies, so I took a lot of damage on my way up. At the top I used the good old look up the solution method. I really should memorize it though, and got the second melody, after which I promptly took a dive into a saw I thought looked quite nice, and died. That's how I learned that if you don't respawn at the bench, the fractured mask doesn't reappear. I guess it does make sense since it's a tool. And finally, High Holes in the Forum Arena. High Holes was quite easy to get through as I could just run past the enemies. I also did the usual and destroyed the Claw Maiden nest. The less enemies I have to deal with, the better. Then I sat at the bench, unlocked the shortcut back into Coral Chambers, and started the arena. Honestly, this gauntlet went horribly wrong because of one enemy and one enemy alone, the Maestro. Every other enemy in the waves I could deal with quite easily, but these bugs, they were the worst. The reason is all the cogflies that are around them. That led to me not being able to get in a hit because the cogflies were in the way, or me getting hit right after the clawline because I flew into one of them. The wave with 2 Maestros was the bottleneck for the longest time. The other waves were okay. In the first one I tried to build up my Hunter Crest damage bonus so I could deal more damage going forward. There were still some things that could screw me over, like the bell throwers, or whenever enemies would have weird positionings in the arena. The middle wave with the mini-boss was easy to deal with as the attacks don't come out so fast, so I could just get one hit in and then dodge out of the way. The waves past the mini-boss were also not too bad as they contained enemies already dealt with, including one Maestro, but since it's that plus a reed, it was a lot easier to take care of. And the final wave with 2 mini-bosses. I did make it here a few times but died because of the big area both of them occupy. In the end, I just had to be patient and use the corner cheese. Thank God that is something you can do, as otherwise I'm not sure how I would get through the forum on some of these challenge runs. Even after learning how to deal with most enemies, those Maestros still made sure it took me over an hour to get past the forum. Either way, I got the final melody, and it was time to deal with Lace and Grandmother Silk. The Lace fight was genuinely fun, other than one tiny detail. If I clawline and she parries at the same time, I go through her model, deal no damage, lose a silk, and take 1 mask of damage myself. I've never seen such BS before. At least it wasn't dealing 2 masks, I guess. Other than that, I would get hits in and then immediately dash away. That allowed me to stay as close to the ground as possible as I needed to be on it in order to answer to whatever attack could come afterwards. I also used 2 neat tricks here. One is that whenever I died, I left my cocoon intact until I needed healing. That would allow me to miss clawline attacks without worrying about losing silk and not being able to heal after taking damage. And the second trick is that I could bait Lace near the ledge and then stagger her into the steam, dealing a lot of damage. You might have already known about this, but to not have it be random, I actually counted the amount of hits I did and waited right before doing the last one so I could guarantee the stagger near the edge and have her fall into the steam. One attack you need to be very careful about is the diagonal jump. If you clawline at the wrong time, you're pretty much guaranteed to get hit by it and take 2 masks of damage. I would recommend waiting to see what she does before going in for an attack, or to go in right after an attack is done and then wait. Also, the ground pounds she does later in the fight are a good spot to get some free damage in. You just have to wait for the animation to end and her to be on the ground. Then you clawline and after that dodge out of the way as the second ground pound will come in fast. You defeated me. Impossible. Now you know the might of Vespa's techniques. Quite the arrogant one, aren't you? Let's see how you deal with her. Wait, you weren't the mastermind? No, you fool. Now go. Then came the final fight. Grandmother Silk. This fight did take a while and a bunch of tries, but to be fair, it wasn't bad. At least not when compared to some of the other fights in this run. The main thing I had to be careful about was the timing of my attacks. After Grandmother Silk does the needle attack, I could go in for 2 hits. If I tried to go for more than that, I run the risk of being in a bad position when the next attack would come. I had to be quite patient here, or just go for it and hope I had the reaction to dodge what was coming my way. The later phases didn't change much other than occasionally making the area in which I could dodge smaller, but that didn't affect me really. It is quite funny, in my opinion, how for this fight I don't really have much to say again. You would expect the final fight in the game to be hard, but even if you fight her normally, it's not that bad. I think in general, Grandmother Silk is not even close to being the hardest fight in the game, and I think it does make sense seeing how there are a bunch more bosses after her in Act 3. So yeah, the fight took a bit of getting used to, but I managed to get it done, and thus I beat Hollow Knight Silksong using only the Clawline. I can't believe she threw me out right as I was delivering the final blow. You managed to get to that pale being at the top. I'm quite surprised. You again? I don't care for the mumblings of random bugs. Oh, I am a random bug? Well then, I think you won't care about my theory on how to defeat the pale being. Alright then. This time I'm actually listening. And that's how this part of the journey ends. I have defeated Grandmother Silk, and I am a bunch of quests away from entering Act 3. As for said act, well, that will be in a future video just like my other Silksong runs. I do have some other ideas that I want to do before I start the Act 3 runs, but they will be done. At least to a degree, since I don't trust myself to defeat Lost Lace. As for the run itself, it was really fun, but also very frustrating at the same time. Gameplay-wise, the Clawline is quite fun. You can easily keep yourself in the air as long as you clawline the enemy. The one problem has really been the damage and the fact you can barely control where you end up after the clawline. The damage issue can be mitigated by needle upgrades and Snitch Pick, but no matter what, your DPS will still be smaller than any normal run. As for controlling where you end up, well, you do have the possibility to dash away right after hitting the clawline, which will throw you away from the enemy. If you are on the ground, then you are able to quickly decide if you need to stay there or if you need to jump in the air to dodge the next attack. There were some occasions like the Maestros where you might end up hitting the Cogvise anyway after your clawline, or with Lace 2 where she can parry you and then your clawline goes right through and you take damage instead. But these were quite rare. Would I recommend you do this run? Well, if you're good at positioning after attacking, you can go right ahead, but expect fights to be quite long. Otherwise it might take you just as long as me or even longer to complete the run. Once again, if you have enjoyed the video, why not support me by liking, commenting and subscribing. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.